Welcome to Chili Jewish. I'm Hani, an entrepreneur constantly inspired by powerful women around me. After living between Miami, New York, and Israel, I realized that Jewish women in entrepreneurship deserve a much bigger spotlight, so I created this podcast to share their stories. Today I'm hosting Kayla.
Hi.
At Excels Professional at Monday.com, a global Israeli tech company, and the host of the podcast, Friends of Kayla. She represents a new generation of Jewish women navigating career, identity, and leadership after October 7. Kayla, welcome to Chili Jewish.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
Kayla, you work in tech sales at Monday.com, one of Israel's most successful global companies. What does it take to succeed in such a high-pressure environment?
It's a good question. Yeah. So I started my career at Salesforce. So I was doing tech sales there out of college for 5 years before moving over to Monday. When I joined Monday, it felt very startup-y to me, although at the time it was a publicly traded company. So I started there in 2023. I think what it takes is just like motivation, grit, and the willingness to like put your head down and just make phone calls. I mean, that's what sales is, right? It's like getting on the phone, getting in front of people, making them need to talk to you. So bringing the value to show them why a product that we have can solve their problems.
Sales really is about people.
Totally. Yeah. It's like the human to human connection. And that's why I love sales. I didn't have a background in sales. Through college, I studied anthropology and sociology. So not so much like a business entrepreneurial education. I went to a liberal arts college, but I think that still translates very well into a sales role because I understood different backgrounds, people, how they work, and what that really looks like. And I think it could translate really well to the corporate world. And for me, it certainly has.
Is there a specific experience that you had as a young woman that shaped you to sales, to what you do now?
I think for me, I've always just been a people person, and there's only like so many careers that are fitting for that, right? It's like you could go into real estate and sell houses. You could go into hospitality and be face-to-face. But what really drove me was like being in tech and being at the forefront of what's new to the world, right? And really being able to take advantage of something that can change the everyday lives of how people really work. And it wasn't necessarily like a pivotal moment for me. It was more so just like I got in at the right time. Like when I graduated college, I had several internships in other fields like public relations and marketing, advertising, and I just wasn't inspired. I'm motivated by money. And if you are motivated by money, sales is a great way to go.
It's a great starting point.
Exactly, exactly.
October 7 affect Jews worldwide, including in professional environments. Did the events of October 7 change how you experienced work or relationship around you?
Totally. I mean, I think I had a unique experience because I was fortunate enough to be at an Israeli company during the outbreak of October 7th. But I truly can't imagine having been anywhere else at the time. Like I know so many friends of mine who are working for companies like large corporations in New York City that actively, posted things, or their leadership teams have said things outright against the Jewish people, against Israel, and like it's very uncomfortable to work in those settings.
It's how to navigate this, because
Right.
eventually work is not just work, it's effects on your day-to-day life.
Yeah, and how do you speak up in a workplace that is so, like it's your job, right? So you have to find a balance of like, do I keep true to my authentic self and like speak out against this, or do I kind of keep it to myself and be quote unquote professional and treat it like, this is a business setting and we need to be like respectful of that. It's my job. It's, something that you don't want to give up, right? But I've had friends that have, for the most part, like friends that were in those situations where their companies were against, let's say the Israeli government, or not speaking out against Hamas, and were in support of, the other side. The friends that I had or have that were at those companies just decided to kind of keep quiet, but did things in their day-to-day, whether that was like doing more things like going to Chabad, getting more involved in the community, giving back, volunteering, going to Shabbat, to try to feel more connected and kind of fill that void. But that is your everyday life. Going to work, your 9 to 5 takes up so much time. So for me, I'm really grateful to have been at an Israeli company, and I felt like I had a real community. But even working at an Israeli company, like I was in New York, right? I wasn't in Tel Aviv working for Monday.com, and there were still people, a very small proportion of the company is Jewish. So there were still other people working for Monday.com, despite it being an Israeli company, that were not so much on the side of the Israelis. So that was also an interesting thing to navigate, and you could sense that tension a bit in the office.
So did you feel more alone during that time or more connected?
I think initially I felt alone, not in the workplace, but because of external factors, because of friends of mine who were my best friends or thought were my best friends for a decade, like my college friendships is what I'm referring to. I, was best friends with two girls who were Lebanese Muslim, and we were best friends for a decade. And their family would call me, their third daughter. I'd go over their house all the time. And during those times, I was always going to Israel. I was always Jewish. I was the same person that I am today, right? But it took October 7th for this drastic divide suddenly to occur. And I was met with a lot of things that other Jewish people experienced at the time too, like unfollowing people on Instagram. I had so many people unfollow me, including the mother of these two girls who called me her third daughter. So there's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing that. And through a lot of uncomfortable moments and awkward silences and elephant in the room feelings, I had conversations with those girls. But I think it's difficult to have conversations when I feel so connected to my home and my identity as a Jew, and they feel so connected to their Lebanese heritage and the experiences that their family has had growing up in Lebanon, right? And so at the end of the day, we kind of agreed to disagree, and we're not really friends anymore. It's very just cordial. But it's sad. It's sad that people can't seem to have conversations, and something so big like this can get in the way of what I thought would be sisters for life.
It's sad, and unfortunately, many people share that experience.
Totally. So many people share that. I don't think people talk about it. And that's why I use that pain and that sadness that I experienced, not only because of what happened to our people, but because of the reactions at home here in America. The friendships being broken, the protests in New York City, the anti-Semitism rising all over the country. I used all of that pain as motivation to drive me to create a podcast where
we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
It's an incredible thing. Did it change how openly Jewish you felt comfortable being?
Yeah. I mean, I think growing up, I was always disconnected from my Jewish identity a bit. I think it's very different when you grow up as an American Jew. Especially I grew up in a not so Jewish area, and I went to Hebrew school, but you have to force yourself to be Jewish in America. Whereas, you're Israeli, you live in Israel, everyone's Jewish. So you don't have to.
It's kind of obvious, but
right.
To be honest, when I came here, I start feeling like it's not that obvious.
No, you have to go out of your way too to feel
Jewish.
To feel Jewish, to feel like you're a part of a community, and that's not something everyone talks about. I feel very lucky to have found a really amazing, strong community here in Miami, but there's so many Jews across this country that are the lone token Jew in their friend group or on their sports team or in their theater group, right? And they have no one to lean on. And that's really difficult. How do you preserve an identity when there's no one else around you to lift you up and bring that community feel together? I think it really is an isolating feeling.
It is, and it is important to find your place. And I guess you find it, in the middle of the crisis. Because for many people, the crisis didn't just take something away. It awakened something. What surprised you most about your own reaction after October 7?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think for me, I always felt connected to Israel, but in other ways. We go on birthright as American Jews, right? We're free trip to Israel. We're 18, 19, we're going to the club.
Taglit is fun,
Shalvata, the Israeli men, the soldiers. It's just this exotic, crazy life. Mm-hmm. Because you guys go to war at 18, we're going to college at 18. It's just a completely different world. And that was the Israel I knew. But then when I started at Monday.com, I ended up going to Israel to visit one of my best friends who I had never visited since she had moved to Israel, made Aliyah. And I had the experience of living a real life as an Israeli, or, at least.
For how long?
I was just for 2 weeks, but
Okay.
I was going to the Monday.com office. I felt like it wasn't just Birthright, it wasn't like this little fantasy experience. It was like real day-to-day life as an Israeli. And that's where I really was drawn to Israel, the people, the culture, the lifestyle. And then that was actually in September of 2023. So then weeks later, I get home and October 7th happened. So I'd already started to feel this like different connection with Israel. So when October 7th happened, I was just like fed up. I was so tired of pushing my Jewish identity away and not standing up for my people for the 28 years of life I had lived at that time. Like my Jewish identity was never central to who I was as a woman. It was something I always tried to hide. I tried to fit in. I didn't want to be seen as the other growing up. I really rejected like being Jewish because I was made fun of. I was told you have a big nose, you're a Jew. I learned what the K word was when I was like 18. Like I experienced anti-Semitism growing up from certain slurs. And I was like, I don't want to be that Jew. I don't want to be just that Jewish girl. So I really hid that part of me. And after October 7th, I was like, fuck it, I'm done. I hope I can swear. I don't want to be that girl anymore that just like hides behind the Jewish name but isn't actually owning who she is. And I really started speaking up and posting about it. I was like, I feel like if no one else, I felt like it was my duty to speak up about it.
So instead of processing quietly, you created something. And you actually created Friends of Kayla. What made you launch Friends of Kayla while working full-time job?
Yeah.
I mean, Monday.com, right? Like you're working around the clock.
Yeah. I mean, Monday, listen, am I working around the clock? No. Tech sales, for those listening, you can do really well in tech sales. And statistically, in most companies now have to work, let's say a 12-hour day. Like I was working a 9 to 5. So I did have some bandwidth to like focus on a passion project. And I think that's like my biggest learning lesson and something I struggled with throughout my 20s was I'm not so passionate about tech sales, but it's making me money. It's, paying the bills and I need to focus on this. But like, what can I do outside of my corporate day-to-day life to feel inspired? And that's where this idea of starting a podcast came to be, because prior to starting the podcast, I was working on the side for another podcast, running events for a very well-known podcast in New York called We Met at Acme. Shout out to Lindsay Metzlar, another lovely Jewish woman. She runs like one of the largest dating podcasts, and I had reached out to her when I was 25. Shot my shot on Instagram with a very professional networking DM, and I said, hey, Lindsay, like I've been following you. I love your dating advice. Here's my LinkedIn. I'm looking to like get into another career path potentially. Turned out it didn't turn into a career path, but it ended up being my side hustle for 5 years. I lived in New York, was running We Met at Acme's events, and that was like super fun for me. And then when I was thinking about moving to Miami, I was like, well, I'm kind of getting out of this events space. Like I've kind of outgrown my time with Lindsay, but she's a podcast host. Learned a lot from her doing that. And I was like, screw it. I want to start my own platform. Like life is too short. Might as well see what you can do. So that's kind of where it all came from, the motivation behind it.
Amazing. And also your podcast connect us as Jews. Who do you hope feel less alone when they listen?
Yeah, I hope, I think constantly about the fact that like I'm so privileged to be in a place like Miami where it truly feels like this is like the second home to Israel. It feels like a mini Tel Aviv.
I feel the same and I'm not American.
Right? Like this, I think this is the closest thing you can get to being there. And, prior to moving here, I did have the thought of like, should I make Aliyah? Like, should I go? And I ended up realizing that I don't need to live there to feel connected. But moving to Miami was important to me. Like my family's here, my friends are here. So again, I'm privileged to have been able to make the move with my job, but not everyone can live in every city they want to live in. People are tied to their homes for their job, through their families. Like there are Jews living in the middle of nowhere that have no one else to feel connected to. There's no Jews around. So I hope my podcast touches people like that who don't feel like they have anyone that they can relate to.
I believe creating space for others is real leadership. Do you see yourself as a leader today, especially for young Jewish women?
I hope so. I think I'm getting there. Okay. That is obviously a goal of mine. Like I would love to inspire younger Jewish women who maybe had similar feelings towards their Judaism growing up, because I'm happy I connected back to my Judaism now later in life, but I wish it was something that was always just innate and something I was proud of for a long time. So I think there's a lot of value that like the younger generations of women can learn from someone like me. And I think I see that now. I've heard from friends who are like very involved in the community that do a lot of work with like, the high school generation. Like after October 7th, those kids like give me hope for the next generation, because they were also so struck by the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel verbiage happening in this country, that they want to do something. And I think there is a lot of hope for what the future generation of women and men, Jews alike, can do.
What responsibilities comes with having a public voice right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to post a lot about things that like I really don't know much about sometimes. So I've gotten better. I've kind of learned my boundaries of, okay, Kayla, you are not an expert on the war in the Middle East, right? So maybe not posting something like inserting my opinion on something, but rather instead like using it as a talking point to ignite a conversation around a point of view or anyone's opinion. Like for example, and this is not necessarily tied to the Middle East, but the Super Bowl commercial around combating anti-Semitism. I personally felt connected to that because I grew up in New England. My they're big Patriots fans, and Robert Kraft, I think, is an amazing individual for our community. And he invested $15 million in making a Super Bowl commercial about combating anti-Semitism. So rather than inserting my opinion on it, I just posted something like, POV, you have $15 million to create a Super Bowl commercial.
I
like,
saw
what
that.
are you doing?
That was genius.
Thank you. And it did well. It did well. So using things like that, I found to have more success than being this random Jewish girl on Instagram posting her opinion on a topic I probably don't know much about.
You found your way of how posting stuff on social media.
Yeah, and that's been like a learning curve. Like I'm not a social media girl or guru. Like I work in tech. I've had Instagram since, 2016, but this whole game of posting content and being a content creator, that's what comes with being a podcaster. And I didn't really realize it in the beginning, but like in order to keep this up, you need to be posting relevant content in tandem. So that's been a challenge for me. I'm curious how you felt about that. But you're more of a natural content creator, I think, than I am.
I mean, I do marketing, so.
So exactly. Yes, you're like, I know what I'm doing. Maybe you can teach me some things, some tips.
I will, but you know what I'm feeling is that what you do is actually working because you're so authentic and you bring yourself to this. And I could feel it, every time I saw your content.
That's the goal. So thank you. I'm really happy you said that.
If a young Jewish woman is listening right now, trying to build a career and stay true to who she is, what would you want her to know?
I think you should know that you're never stuck. I think it's really easy to feel like there's no next step and there's no new job. There's no new career. Like you can't pivot. You're stuck in this field that you don't want to be in, but there's always a way out. And you're never tied to anything. Nothing's permanent. So if you're feeling that urge to do something, like literally whatever that may be, just do it and talk to the people, make connections, network on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my favorite platform ever, like outside of Instagram, TikTok, anything. LinkedIn can be used not only for jobs, but also can be used for dating. Like God only knows. I know people that have met their partners on LinkedIn. Like you just never know who you're going to meet. So put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to just learn new things and make a change. Because I found that every time I've made a change, whether that was like starting something new or moving cities, it's only benefited me in the end. And again, nothing's permanent. If I hated Miami, I'd move, but I love it here. And my move was really the best thing that could have happened to me. So I think, if you're stuck or if you feel stuck, you're never actually stuck.
You tried, and then you succeed.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's succeeding without trying? Like there wouldn't be success. So you have to just take a leap in whatever capacity that may mean.
Kayla, thank you so much for sharing your story, your strength, your voice. This is exactly why She Leads Jewish exists, to remind us that leadership starts with identity. So thank you for being here. And thank you for listening to Shili Jewish. Until next time, keep leading.